よし、ニャオハ、コノハって、あれ、ほんと気まぐれなんだから。
Hey everyone, it's Mark. This is my recap for Pokémon Horizons Episode 1, The Pendant of Beginnings, Part 1. This was the 1233rd episode of the Pokémon anime and the first episode of the new series. If this is your first time finding my channel, welcome. I review every new episode of the Pokémon anime, and in this video I'm going to tell you exactly what happened in Episode 1 of Pokémon Horizons, and then give my reaction and review, as well as assigning the episode a rating from 1 to 10. If you need help finding where to watch Pokémon Horizons, me and my friends would be happy to help you over in my Discord server. The link is in the description. Be sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button, and now, let's get started. The episode opens with a quick intro from the narrator, basically just telling us to find adventures alongside Pokemon, blah blah blah. We're introduced to the first of our new protagonists, Liko, or should I say Liko? I'm not totally sure on that one just yet. Anyways, she's arriving at a bus stop on Route 22 in Kanto, and the only other person there starts waving in her direction. Liko was surprised, but this girl was actually waving at her friend, who was behind Liko. This scene is meant to be showing us right off the bat that Liko is a little awkward socially. Honestly, and I'll talk more about this later, but Liko came off as very relatable to me. She's very nervous and has a lot of self-doubt when it comes to interacting with others. She spends a lot of time thinking to herself, and apparently this makes it difficult for others to break through to her. We hear a lot of her internal dialogue throughout this episode, and right now she's just thinking about how she wants to learn new things. That's why she came here. When they get on the bus, the other girls are watching a video from Nido Thing on their phone. Liko was also a fan of this Neat Arena themed internet personality, but she's too nervous to say anything to the other girls. We learn that this is Liko's first time in the Kanto region, so she's seeing a lot of new Pokemon. They eventually arrive at the Indigo Academy, which is where Liko is about to start school. She goes straight to her dorm room, but when she opens the door, there's another girl in there already making a huge mess. This girl runs up and excitedly introduces herself to Liko as her roommate, Anne. They waste no time making her seem all over the place, and the two share one of the most awkward handshakes ever. Liko slowly starts to open up to her new friend, and she mentions that this is the first time she's ever been outside of Paldea, her home region. Liko continues to talk about her backstory, explaining that both of her parents went to the Indigo Academy, so that's why she's here now. We cut to later that day in the courtyard where Liko and Anne are watching a battle. Apparently, they're both going to receive their starter Pokemon tomorrow, and Liko explains how she went through several interviews with the teachers and Pokemon of this school before she came here. Later that night, Liko can't sleep and is drawing something on a tablet. I'm not sure if she's keeping some kind of diary or what, but we keep hearing her internal dialogue about how she's nervous, something we hear over and over again in this episode. Jumping ahead to what I am assuming is Liko and Anne's homeroom class the following day, their teacher updates all of their Rotom phones so they can use the Pokedex. Next, it's time to get their starter Pokemon, and I can't really tell if these Pokemon were assigned to them based on their interviews or what, but anyways, Anne gets a really energetic Oshawott as her partner. Liko is up next, so she nervously walks up to get her starter Pokemon, and I guess I'm just gonna go with the assumption that she was assigned this Pokemon by the school. Liko wants to make a good first impression. Again, we're getting a lot of self-doubt, nervousness, etc., and she sends out her new Pokemon, and it's a Sprigatito. Liko just kind of stands there in awe with her mouth wide open, which she quickly realizes is not the first impression she wanted to make. As she goes to pick up Sprigatito, it bares its claws and scratches Liko's hand before running away outside of the classroom. Liko tries chasing after it, obviously struggling to keep her cool as she's freaking out on the inside that her first time meeting her partner Pokemon went so horribly. She eventually finds Sprigatito up on the roof, so Sprigatito jumps out towards its trainer. And instead of a perfect catch, Sprigatito just lands on Liko's face, which causes her to lose her balance and fall off the building. Luckily for her, she lands on another student's Snorlax, and before she can even finish apologizing, Sprigatito is on the run once again. Her chase leads her into the forest as the sun begins to set, and she eventually finds a scenic area by some water. Sprigatito eventually comes back to her, and Liko is excited to be reunited with her starter Pokemon, but Sprigatito hasn't exactly warmed up to its trainer just yet. In fact, it even pushes itself away from Liko before walking off again, so yeah, not a great start to these two's journey together. Back in their room, Anne fell asleep watching a Nido Thing video, and Liko is back at it drawing and thinking about the events of her day, but at least it's good to see Sprigatito not running away from her anymore. The next day, Liko and Anne have their first battle against one another, but Sprigatito won't listen to its trainer, just rushing in and getting blasted by a water gun instead, which scares Liko, and so she immediately stops the match to make sure Sprigatito is okay. Liko says that Sprigatito is so reckless and she just doesn't know what it's thinking, which is the exact same thing people always say about her. So this is her first real breakthrough that maybe she and Sprigatito have more in common than she originally thought. Later that night, Liko is watching a Nidothing video alongside Sprigatito, and everyone's favorite content creator not named Elite Trainer Mark is explaining what type matchups are, and now Sprigatito and Liko are beginning to be on the same wavelength. They sneak out at night to go train together, but they can't really pull up any moves. Whenever Liko calls for Leafage, Sprigatito just fails. Sad. They sneak back to their room together, and it looks like Sprigatito has found its favorite spot on Liko's bed. But Liko isn't falling asleep just yet. She goes to check on this box she keeps underneath her bed, which contains a pendant. Anne catches her in the act, but Liko is fine with showing her, and she explains that it was originally her grandmother's, but that's all we learn for now. The next day, Liko is lost in her own thoughts as Anne spots an airship, which we know is Professor Freed's, but these two have no idea. It's not really introduced in the episode at this point. Liko says that she's jealous of Anne and Oshawott, but Anne just responds that both Liko and Sprigatito have a hard time getting others to understand them, so they just need to open up to one another. Liko takes this advice and starts studying Sprigatito, hoping to learn more about it. I'm not quite sure if she actually learns anything besides where Sprigatito likes to take naps, but oh well. We cut to some adults wandering around the school grounds. They aren't introduced in the show, but we know from beforehand that these are members of Professor Freed's group, known as the Rising Volt Tacklers. They're all looking for Liko, but they can't seem to find her anywhere. Meanwhile, Liko is busy looking for Sprigatito, and thanks to her time spent studying her partner Pokemon, she is able to find Sprigatito, and the two share probably their nicest moment together so far. After a few more scenes of Liko and Sprigatito hanging out while the Rising Volt Tacklers can't find her, we get a dramatic cut to commercial break as a new, shady character arrives at the school. When we come back, apparently it's time for a little vacation or holiday, as many of the students are leaving the academy for the time being, including Anne. Liko is staying on campus though, so the two split up for now. As she walks back to her room, she finds that strange man talking to the school custodian. This weirdo is also looking for Liko, and he wants to deliver a letter from Liko's grandmother, which allegedly says that Liko needs to bring her the pendant we saw the other night. Sprigatito is creeped out by this guy, but Liko goes to her room to find the pendant. Inside, she's clearly on the same page as her starter Pokemon as she paces back and forth. Highly suspicious of this guy's insistence of getting her pendant. Weirdo McGee eventually knocks on her door, but Liko decides to put the pendant on as a necklace and run away, escaping out the back window and onto the roof with Sprigatito. She's eventually found by one of the guy's associates, who immediately sends out a Rhydon to try and subdue her. Sprigatito is ready for action, and Liko tells it to use Leafage, which actually works. They use it another time, blinding Rhydon with a grass-type move before they run away. They are quickly cornered once again, this time on the roof. Just as this guy is threatening to take her pendant by force, here comes this lunatic, dive-bombing himself into the fray while riding on a Charizard. He gets in between Liko and the assailant, and even though they don't introduce themselves, we know this is Professor Freed, and he's challenged to a battle by a Methio, which is just fine by Freed. It's Saralege versus Charizard in this epic clash, and they look evenly matched. The action is really fast-paced and destructive, and Liko recognizes that this situation is pretty bad. They run away, getting even higher up the building. After looking back at the tense battle behind them, Liko realizes that she's gonna have to jump for it, and she and Sprigatito take the leap of faith together. Right at this moment, one of Saralege's Psycho Cuts deflects past Charizard, past Freed, and heads straight for Liko, when out of nowhere, her pendant starts to glow and activates some kind of protective shield around her and Sprigatito. And this epic twist is how the episode comes to an end. Okay, and that was the first episode of the new era of the Pokemon anime. We're no longer following Ash and Pikachu's adventures, and Liko's story is off to a hot start. Now, the first two episodes of Pokemon Horizons aired back-to-back as part of a 1-hour special, but so far only episode 1 is available subbed, so I haven't even watched episode 2 yet. You can expect my review of episode 2 shortly. These episodes appear to be part of a chapter of the anime, which is titled Liko and Roy Set Off, or maybe it's Liko and Roy's Departure. I've seen it translated both ways, but we haven't seen Roy just yet. So far, this episode was all about Liko. And that's where I want to start with my discussion about this episode. The anime only gets one chance to introduce us to Liko, and just as she says, a first impression is important, and my first impression of Liko is that I think we have got a real winner on our hands. Her personality is relatable enough for a lot of people to connect with, and her future looks incredibly bright. I mentioned this towards the beginning of the review, but I was a big fan of how they portrayed Liko as a hesitant, nervous kid who wasn't sure of herself. They went on to kind of hammer that point home over and over and over again throughout this episode, but I think they got their point across. The scene on the bus at the beginning really illustrated all of this perfectly. She's awkward around people she's not already comfortable with, and is showing similar signs of the social anxiety to what I experienced. She's nervous to put herself out there, and even finds comfort in excusing herself from even having to try. As the episode goes on, we see that Liko is capable of opening up to people. She befriended Anne and has a good relationship with several other characters, most notably her Sprigatito. These two were made for one another, even if things are still a little awkward right now, but they've got tons of time to break the ice and become amazing partners. It'll be interesting to see going forward how Liko's character development is handled. She's just a rookie trainer going to school right now, but we know she's destined for amazing things. Are they going to rush her progress towards achieving her goals and dreams, or are they going to take things nice and slow? Moving away from Liko for now, this episode also introduced a lot of other interesting characters, and even though I found Liko incredibly relatable, maybe some other characters were more relatable for you. The mystery around all of the people searching for Liko was, well, mysterious, even if I couldn't help but cringe a little bit at the thought of adults walking around a school looking for a little girl. We saw next to nothing about Anne in the promotion leading up to Pokémon Horizons, so I'm not sure how big of a role she's actually going to play. I do love her Oshawott, and I think Anne is a great contrast to Liko, so I hope we'll see them together some more. All things considered, I like this episode a lot. For the premiere of a brand new series with brand new characters to boot, I thought they did a great job introducing so many new things while leaving just enough up to interpretation that we're gonna have to keep watching in order to find out more. It was really difficult for me to even think about how I wanted to rate this episode. I'm going off the same scale that I used for all previous episodes of the anime, and after much deliberation, I'm giving this episode an 8.5 out of 10 rating. If I could be critical about this episode for a second, I will say that it was pretty slow paced and had a ton of dialogue. Not that either of those things are necessarily bad, but it really took until the very last scene for me to have any kind of big reaction one way or another. That scene blew me away. So while episode 1 of Pokemon Horizons was really good, it was mostly just laying the foundation for what's to come, so I don't want to go overboard and give it too high of a rating, even if I do think it was a well executed introduction to this new era of the Pokemon anime. I always end my reviews by talking about what's up next, and honestly, I don't want to speculate too much on the preview for the next episode, considering that it has literally already aired. I haven't watched episode 2 yet at the time of this recording, but I will sit down and watch it as soon as the subs come out and bring you my episode review as quickly as I possibly can. I think I'll leave things there for now. There was a lot to discuss with the first episode of Pokemon Horizons, and I'm sure I'll have plenty to say about the next episode as well, in addition to a few channel updates that I'll save for the next video. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my episode 2 review when it comes out, leave a like on this video if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys next time.